Hi, I'm Shamar Griffith, codenamed Comic Shams.
And I am Andrew Tahada, codename Arate.
I am a blur with a love of artwork and comics and animation.
And I'm a writer in Blurred with a love for pretty much the same things.
We grew up together and spent our formative years watching and talking about DC superhero shows and content. In fact, we still do.
Every episode, we will discuss a DC production, compare it to its original source material, and share our thoughts on the adaptation.
We've enjoyed our conversations these past couple of decades, and we think you will too.
This season, we're getting whelmed for DC's greatest sidekicks and covering every episode of Young Justice on
Yet another DC animated podcast, part of the Forgotten Entertainment family. Welcome to yet another episode of yet another DC animated podcast. My name is Shamar Griffith, codenamed Comic Shams.
And I am Andrew Tahada, codename Arate.
Andrew and I have known each other since 1996.
That was the year David Copperfield brought his Broadway production Dreams and Nightmares. That's when it opened. It had some thin narrative. People were doing magic in the aisles. He gets cut in half, contortionists himself, levitates, and he just goes to the aisles and has some fun.
Interesting. At one point, as soon as you said dreams and nightmares, I started thinking about Meek Mill, and I was like, that definitely wasn't part of that song. Wow, David Copperfield, what a stand-up act. I don't know. I guess you gotta stand up if your legs are gone. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know what magic he was doing.
It lasted for 3 weeks, so either it was really bad or just
Three
limited
weeks?
runs. Who knows?
It's a lot of magic. Well, speaking of the magic, we're still going to be talking about some magical episodes, I guess, today for our Young Justice rewatch. Like this is a rewatch for us. As we are covering 3 episodes today, fully getting deeper into season 1, we're covering episodes 18 through 20, titled Secrets, Misplaced, and Cold Hearted. Now, Andrew and I are both big fans of the Harry Potter universe, Hogwarts, and all that. Hence why, because of all this magic, and that even pops up a little bit in our last episode, Cold Hearted Today, as an homage to an 80s film, I'm calling today's Fast Times at Hogwarts High.
I think appropriate. I agree.
Yes. Also because Hogwarts is now a HBCU, let's be honest.
Oh.
So these missions that are happening in these 3 episodes span from October 31st to November 12th. So just in time for our Halloween produced episode here that does not involve any Batman Unlimited storytelling.
I'd walk off. Thank God.
So we do have some members of our cast today, and we're starting off with, I'm pretty sure that Young Justice just loves musical artists, because our first cast member today is another performer, because we do have Jesse McCartney as the voice of Dick Grayson Robin. We have another performer here today as Robert Ochoa of the Ochoa Boys. That's Boys with a Z. Is the voice of Billy Batson in our Misplaced episode today.
Oh, that's not who I expected it to be, but okay.
Who'd you think it was?
I just is gonna be like, oh, this actor who's done like 700 Damian Wayans. That's what I was expecting.
No. No, he is mostly seen in an amusement park singing about a girl because he is lost in love. That is actually one of the names of their songs.
Fine by me.
Next up, Modern Family actress Ariel Winter reprises her role as Queen Perdita. Apparently, she's actually been the voice of Princess Perdita at least 3 times in DC showcases, all of which were done by Greg Weisman, who is one of the showrunners here for our Young Justice series. Always pitted against her uncle Vertigo, but we have Ariel Winter once again now upgraded to Queen Perdita in our Cold Hearted episode. And finally, this one will, fortunately for you, Andrew, this is what you're looking for. This person's list is just incredibly long. He is in our secret episode. Harm is here, voiced by Ben Diskin, and his voice is so familiar across animation, Western cartoons, and video games. He was number one and number two in Codename Kids Next Door for both in the show and in the video games.
Oh my God, that's a classic.
He is Sai in Naruto Shippuden and its video games.
Ah, okay.
He is Venom or Eddie Brock in probably arguably the best Spider-Man cartoon ever created, Spectacular Spider-Man.
Mm.
He is the second voice actor for Stitch.
Okay.
And finally, this is the most important role of all because this man is an icon in the Arrowverse. In fact, you may call him a legend because, yes, Ben Diskin helped the legends form together to create the wonderful blue ball of fur that we love, Bebo.
From Bebo to Psy, I don't understand how you do it. But Ben, good job on all of those. We'll talk about Harm.
All right, well, in that case, let's try to do no harm. As we jump into his episode here, we're going to Zeta Tube over to the beginning of Secret, starting now.
So apparently, a Beowulf sword has been stolen out of a museum collective. Not really clear what this is.
Oh no, this is the actual Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Oh, this is the Metropolitan Museum of Art. This is how they drew it. Okay. All right. So that offense aside, that I couldn't even recognize the museum. The museum curator is trying to explain, yeah, this Beowulf sword can be operated by someone with a pure heart. They could use it to do all kinds of bad things, or just take power. And because it's the NYPD, they give up immediately their investigation. They don't even try. They don't even take notes, really.
Pretty true pictures.
Yeah, they do. Just like, all right, can I find him for something here? So pretty accurate representation of the NYPD. And then just as they're about to walk out and get some chopped cheeses for the night, Harm shows up and he's here for the sword.
Yes, I gotta admit, this was a bit of a scary entrance, mainly for the sword, because the sword, it's in what looks like someone's hand, not as a way they're holding the sword, but the sheath of the blade is someone's arm. So it's a really cool design, especially if you're looking for like a cool, dark, kind of like evil looking sword. He's hanging around because apparently there are some magic words that needs to be said is for the sword to finally be taken out of the sheath. And this is where we learn the big secret that we're so accustomed to saying that it can only be wielded by someone who's pure of heart, but that pure doesn't necessarily have to mean good, as Harm shares that he has a heart of pure evil. So he basically unalives every single person in our Halloween adventure that's beginning today, already giving Michael Myers, I guess, a little run for his money on Halloween. As we hop on over to Mount Justice now, where the team, they are preparing for a Halloween party. We see that Wally is a wolf man, or actually more accurately, Teen Wolf. And we see that Miss Martian is helping Superboy become, which was a really funny joke later on, but he is supposed to be a mummy, but someone calls him out for something even funnier, as Miss Martian changes into her outfit where she turns into a I don't know, like a corpse bride.
I think so. I think that's what she was going for. Yeah. I do like how this, just keeping in tone with the episode, the dark opening of this episode, we go immediately to relationship drama because Wally is apparently stupider in this episode than he has been previously, because he has no idea that Megan and Superboy are dating, even though, I mean, Come on, come on.
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
like even Daredevil could see how in love they are.
yeah, I think it's fairly obvious. And in this episode, it's so he's so dumb because this comes up a few episodes later, but it's handled better there as kind of like just ignorance. But here it's just like he is willfully dumb and missing what's going on here. But that's not all because Artemis comes in and sees McGann after Zatanna immediately assesses, hey, looks like her and McGann and Superboy are together. Artemis immediately gets upset and is not going to the Halloween party, wants to storm out and take on the entirety of New York City. And while they did mention before that Artemis had a crush on Superboy, they did a little bit of that. To this extent,
Mm-hmm.
no, this has
Yeah.
not been tackled for episodes. So this seems incredibly misplaced,
Yeah,
which is the
I
name of the next episode. Didn't mean to do
I
that on purpose.
but hey, when it works, it works. But I agree. I felt like it was really weird that Artemis kind of like jumped into completely being upset about this. I was just like, even in my mind, I was like trying to justify, is she more upset that like McGann is with Superboy, or is that McGann never told her and she's looking for the fact that like they're two women on the team and she's hoping that maybe she would confide in her, that kind of thing? We don't get that answer because again, it's Artemis versus everybody. Because she's taken down alongside with Zatanna. They decide to go have a girls' night out where Artemis gets the chance to just let loose. It leads her into, unfortunately, them making their way and having Harm just spy on them because he's noticing that, oh, they are doing some things out here that he wants to try to and see if he can actually take them down. At the same time, the rest of the team heads on over to their Halloween party.
Yeah, and I'll let you because you set this up earlier. What
Mm.
Superboy in his mummy costume is called by Mal Duncan.
Yes, because as soon as Superboy and the rest of the team enter, they see that everybody's dressed up as Justice League members. And when Mal sees him, the first thing he questions is, "What are you supposed to be, a burn victim?" And I was just like, "Sir, he's
It's
coming at the throat."
is that also foreshadowing to 4 seasons later?
Oh, Mal, you ain't right.
Too soon, too early,
Too
actually.
early, yeah.
um and here we get a quick side plot for something that gets set up later. There's this kid Marvin who is saying on the interwebs. Why a kid would be saying interwebs in 2010, that's up to you guys. Um, so he's saying there's all this chatter about Martians and everything. So everybody watch out. Meanwhile, completely no transition. We cut to Batman,
Mm-mm.
Aqualad, Robin, Red Arrow, and Green Arrow having a closed door meeting to figure out if there was a mole on the team or not. And they've narrowed it down. They're like, Kid Flash, Aqualad, Robin, y'all good. But Superboy might be a product of Cadmus. That's why Batman suspects him. McGann apparently stowed away to get to Earth, and they call out, well, she's Martian Manhunter's niece. It's like, well, he has 107 nephews and nieces, so why should we trust this one? And it's like, where is all this vague racism coming from? Like, this Martian racism? And Red Arrow suspects Artemis because he knows that she doesn't shoot straight. So now that that scene comes out of there, we're off to something else.
Also, it is revealed that Robin does know the true identity of Artemis because before he can actually share it, um, he does share that like she's not even Green Arrow's niece, which is shocking to Calder, who's just like, I come on, I'm the leader. How did you not share this information with me, knowing that we have a mole? But Batman does stop him from sharing anymore because everybody is entitled to a secret identity. Um, but yeah, as we, I do, it was really random. This was a super random scene, but we have to hop on over because apparently, um, now that Zatanna and Artemis are still out on their girls' night, they finally come face to face with Harm, who is ready to more or less unalive them.
Yeah, and I also have to ask really quick before we get to harm. What year is this in New York City? Because there's a crime happening on every block. Like, did they time travel back to the 90s and 80s? Like, what the hell?
Appreciate y'all peace now. We was fighting hard in these streets.
There were more crimes than people in the city happening. But yeah, in any case, harm comes, and right away Zatanna and Artemis see that they're outclassed. Arrows don't work. The spells are not getting through to him. The sword is just too powerful. So luckily they see a random ghost girl in an alley and they go, you know what? Might as well follow her.
Of course.
Seems like the best plan. So Zadana puts up a wall of fire and they go chase this random girl.
Yeah, and as they continue on with the chase, at the same time, we're back at the Halloween party at the school. Now everybody's getting notifications about the Martian invasion, which I feel is just like really dumb because like Snapper, the I'm assuming he's the principal, um, he brings up is like Martians can't invade us. We have Martian Manhunter and Miss Martian. We're 2 for 2 on good side now, and I'm pretty sure they'll help stop that. Um, but somehow, in some way, somebody hacks into the voice PA system and starts saying that this is Homeland Security. Requests all the students to stay inside because there is a full-on Martian invasion now, and everybody's freaking out. However, Connor does pick up that something is a bit off about this whole announcement, so he uses his supervision. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
This is like supervision to see that it's Marvin on the PA system, tricking everybody into thinking that Martians are attacking.
What is hilarious about this, and this is not even the show's fault, but if you watch with subtitles on HBO Max,
Yeah.
not a plug for HBO Max, not sponsored yet, but yeah, if you watch on HBO Max, it immediately tells you it's Marvin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so there's no ambiguity about that. So I don't know who did that. Um,
Yeah. Somebody, yeah, you type too much.
yeah, you're good at your job, whoever did
Yeah.
that, but maybe a little too good. Um, so while they go and try to figure out what they're going to do at Marvin, we cut back to the Hush fight, which leads to my favorite line of this episode, maybe my only favorite line of this episode, where Zatanna is running and she says, "These boots are cute, but I need to change into something more practical," and changes her shoes. I did like that little added detail.
I felt like they were the same shoes, but maybe they added in some sole inserts for
Yeah,
running.
yeah, oh yeah, design wise, yeah, they were
Okay,
exactly
okay,
the
okay,
same.
okay.
Yeah,
I was wanting to make sure I saw that
you're
too. I
not
was just
tripping.
like, yeah, I was like, oh, that's a smart idea. Like, don't run around in heels. But I was just unsure.
Yeah.
So now this whole entire fight leads into Artemis is definitely mocking this guy because like the more and more that Harm is talking, he's just calling us as like Harm sees the insects and is ready to kill them, and Harm is going to do this and Harm is going to do that. And she's just like, we get it, your name is Harm. And we also learned that the little ghost girl, her name is Secret, because that's all she ever says. So now Harm and Secret are just like kind of trying to figure out something here. The next thing that happens though is unfortunately Harm is able to like overpower both Satana and Artemis by shocking them in some way, shape, or form to knock them out. And we jump to the next scene now where Harm is forcing Artemis to tell him how does she know where Harm's home was. And at the same time, Zatanna has a crossbow from Artemis pointed at her head, and he's telling her that if you don't share with me how you knew my secret, I will kill Zatanna here, who at the same time, Secret has now appeared to help free Zatanna.
Yeah. So before we get into the Saw part of the episode, um, they cut back to Marvin again. And the heroes decide the best way to deal with this Marvin situation is to prank him. So Megan shapeshifts into a silhouette of Marvin the Martian from other Warner Brothers products. And then I go, oh, Marvin's the guy. She shapeshifted into Marvin the Martian. I get the joke. Clever. Um, and the pseudo Martian Marvin the Martian beats up Superboy and Kid Flash a little bit. That gets Marvin to run back into the gym and say, "Oh, it was a prank. It was a prank. There are real Martians here now, and they killed two guys." And then Superboy and Kid Flash walk in and go, "What's up?" And that's the end of that plotline. Anyway, back to the Saw section of the show. Yeah, so Secret frees Zatanna, and Zatanna uses some magic illusions to get Artemis, and they immediately go into the kitchen, set off the gas stove in a beautiful, what, like a three-story apartment in New York
Yeah.
City?
Yeah. I have
Where
no
did this
idea.
come from?
I This was not on Street Easy at all when I was checking. Hashtag not sponsored. But it is wild that unfortunately though it does not exist for very much longer because after letting loose the gas, Artemis does shoot a fire arrow to basically explode the entire kitchen. Um, this is where they are now outside alongside. This is Artemis, Zatanna, and they also see that Secret is there with them. And Secret brings them over to a little plot of land that has been definitely been disturbed very recently, and it's revealed to actually be a grave site. And on this grave, the headstone marks Greta Hayes, which through context clues, Zatanna and Artemis decipher that Secret is Greta, and that's Harm is actually her brother from an earlier picture that they saw, noticing that Harm must have killed his sister, and now she's a ghost helping them to stop him.
Yep. I hope everyone followed that at home because so yeah, and up until this point he hasn't been able to see his sister, but his sister appears fully in front of him. And because he has some regret about killing his sister, his heart is no longer pure evil. So the sword starts to become too heavy for him to carry. And eventually his sister takes out his main power out of his chest. And Artemis, without the power, Artemis is easily able to take him down. This is the woman who gave the business to Poison Ivy after all. So
Mhm.
this is no problem for her. And Artemis, this is a time when Zatanna says, secrets can hurt. So if you have anything you're hiding, now would be a good time. And Zatanna says, no, I'm good. And they look out across the street, across the fence where the sister was buried, and they see a sign that says secret, and they figure that's the last thing she saw. So that's why she kept repeating it like she was a Pokemon, a ghost Pokemon to be specific.
uh, uh, let's I'm not going to talk anymore about that because I'm gonna misplace my judgment on that for a bit as we hop into misplaced now. Our next episode as we open up to Roanoke Island, where this is for any supernatural fans out here. This is the most supernatural-esque scene I've ever seen in my life. Crossroads, there's magical beings popping up from demonic sorts, and it's Clarion who is joined alongside a bunch of other evil sorcerers. Wotan, who we met in our previous episodes, a part of the Injustice League. We have Felix Faust, who the very the very sexist sorcerer from just the Justice League Dark movie that we covered.
Yes.
We got Wizard, whose name is actually William I. Zard. And finally, we got Blackbriar Thorn. They have come together to cast a spell. And the next day, we see now that it is time for our team to meet up once again. Zatara is here with Zatanna. Everybody's doing a grocery run. It seems like they've stocked up on from BJ's. They're just bringing everything into Mount Justice right now.
I love in this scene Red Tornado being so extra, moving boxes with little
Mhm.
tornadoes. Bro, you're a robot. Just pick that up. What are you doing?
It's like the most extra shit I've ever seen in my life. Do I want to have that ability? Yes. At the
Of
same
course.
time, sir.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that with my remote, but come on, man. But they're moving to boxes, and Zatanna is talking about responsibility. She doesn't know if her father is going to be able to really let her go to kind of join the team full time. And meanwhile, Shazam has just finished beating Sabak. He's on a high, and all of a sudden, his uncle Zatara, Batman, all the adults just get blipped out of existence. And I will give so much credit to Billy Batson here because immediately his first instinct is, I want to become Shazam. But he thinks quickly, if all the adults have gone and all the kids remain, then if I turn into Shazam, I'll technically be an adult and I might disappear too. So
Mhm.
he decides if he's going to try to save the world, he's going to have to do it as himself, his kid self. So he's off while the rest of the heroes, the young heroes that are left, decide what they should do next.
Yeah, so now we see that the very similar to the failsafe episode, the young heroes have really stepped up now that the older heroes are gone. So they are just basically we have Kid Flash and Miss Martian as well as Superboy going to different homes and opening up car doors to save the kids that are being left behind. There's so many little cute moments also, I will say, even in this like very dark time where two of which are Superboy is picks up a kid who is strapped in his car seat, um, and this kid notices that Superboy is also wearing an S on his shirt like he has on his hoodie. So he had this little cute moment where it's just like, oh, little baby super baby is looking up to Superboy, and then Kid Flash, as for a job well done and saving all these kids that he has been saving, this one kid offers him his sippy cup. He's like, hey man, I know you're probably a little thirsty right now, running around like crazy, because they're bringing all these kids to the high school that's nearby as a sort of refugee camp, where we even have Artemis here. She is entertaining all the kids. She starts singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, but I'm hopefully assuming that she just was playing around and pretending like she didn't know the words.
I think so. I think
Okay,
so.
good. But it also made me realize that Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, Baba Black Sheep, and apparently part of the alphabet are sung in the very same tune.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very easy to transition between those songs.
Mhm.
Um Now I'll address this because I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't address this.
Sorry.
But I'll get into it. They do it well, so it's two sides of a coin. So in this horrible nightmare scenario world, we would realistically have planes falling, hospitals
Mhm.
coming to a standstill, electrical grids failing. So obviously they don't really explore the full consequences of all of that for the most part, but because they know they can't. It would be insane. So, but to their credit, the other side of the coin is there are moments where they really make it apparent. So, for example, Wally, someone asked Wally, "Hey, did you go home and check on your folks?" And he says, "I've been racing around saving kids. I don't need to see another empty house." And the way that line is delivered, the impact of that line is really good, and it's really done well. And following that, the heroes do a worldwide broadcast, multilingual even, to
Mm.
reassure people, stick together. If you're older, take care of the younger kids. Make sure that everyone's being taken care of, and extra duper bonus points because the last broadcast took place on my birthday. So it was a November 6th broadcast. So that's credit to the show. A million bonus points. But now it's time for a cut back to Billy Batson and seeing what he's going to do to help save the world.
Yeah, so he decides that the after seeing the the broadcast. He's like, the best thing for me to do is head back to see if I can meet up with the team. So he tries going into one of the many locations where there are Zeta Tube access points. Unfortunately, uh, even though he has the right phrases, the right override codes, unfortunately the system does not recognize him as Shazam. It still sees him as someone trying to impersonate and break through. So he decides that the best thing for him to do is try to see if he could go and find somebody to fly him over to Mount Justice and see if maybe he can get some work done there. So he does go, he meets up with hoping that's his friend named Amber. I think it's a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Um so as he's heading on over to try to see if Amber can fly him over to where the cave is at the same time Robin and Zatanna are in Mountain Justice trying to figure out if there's a way they can locate what's causing this disappearance of all the adults, because they realize that it has a bit of a magical source to it. So Robin was able to pick up video footage of when Zatanna's father pulled up, was able to find the location of Wotan in the Injustice League episode. So she's asked her, can you repeat the same spell? Which she's a little hesitant on because it requires so much focus and so much power to do. And this is where we get into a really kind of deep conversation that's happening between Aqualad and Kid Flash, who are realizing that they're reaching a point where they might be desperate.
Yeah. And they're really backed into a corner here. And this is where the episode really takes another surprising turn, because as they're in the plane, Billy and his friend, she offhand mentions that today's her birthday and she just turned 18. So she disappears. And Billy is stuck in this plane. It's going to go down and he doesn't know what to do. So he's like, the only thing he can do is take a leap of faith and turn into Shazam. So he does so. And here is where the episode restarts. So we go back to the first scene. They're moving boxes again, being extra. They're having the same conversations, and this is where I'm like on HBO Max. I'm like, did I reset something? What did I do here? But here's the twist. We're seeing it from the other perspective, because from the adults' perspective, all the kids disappeared, and it's a world without any children. And we we get Shazam. He gets to save his friend in midair. So thank God he tried it. Otherwise, his friend would have fallen to the ground.
Oh yeah.
And now all the adults are going haywire because all their kids are gone. And I do love everyone goes to Star, even though it's a villain plan, that they go to Star Labs. It's like, this is Star Labs' fault. And I'm like, honestly, probably.
Yeah. It's like, for instance, is Helen Lovejoy's like, think of the children. We know you did it, Star Labs. But it is crazy that this was a part of the villain's plan. So we do see that the unmasked face of Sportsmaster here he's inciting a riot with the adults, with Jim Gordon with the rest of Gotham City Police trying to get them to calm down. And I'm just like, this is the most work I've seen Gotham City Police do. Um, Meanwhile, while everybody's starting to fight, this is where we see that Sportsmaster starts backing away. Riddler appears with a briefcase of some sort from inside the laboratory. He gets picked up by Sportsmaster and they start driving away. So, meanwhile, at Mount Justice, we have a very similar conversation, which is kind of cool that these conversations are happening in real time almost, where now it's Batman and Zatara talking about where they are, wondering what happened to their kids, and thinking that like they might be desperate enough to try something that might be really dangerous. And it's the same exact conversation that Kid Flash and Aqualad are having, in which do they use the helmet of fate and risk the possibility of one of them turning into Dr. Fate forever. But both teams, both sides on both locations are saying they're not that desperate yet.
Yeah, and it's such a cool concept now that you know that the parallel worlds are happening, and how each world kind of dealt with it. But luckily, the bridge is Shazam, and Shazam tells them instantly what the situation is, and they realize that he can travel between the two parallel worlds with his abilities. So he does so, and it's a great scene where he encounters the team, the younger team, and they're like, "Who the hell are you?" And he explains that he's Billy Batson, he's younger than all of them secretly. So the two sides decide to coordinate their attacks and figure that Clarion is where you have to go. Clarion is at Roanoke Island, where Sam and Dean are probably just off screen in one of these dimensions. And they all go and attack him. And immediately it becomes clear that they are far outclassed. They got a
Hmm.
cat taking steroids. Clarion's got a stronger barrier than Rocket. There is just nothing they're doing is getting any closer to stopping this horrific spell.
So, and at the same time, the adults are also initiating their attack where they're facing off against the four wizards who are of adult age. They're doing a little better, but it's still not enough. And this is where certain things are being revealed. Um, some of the magic users realize that both sides have this gem that's causing this split in the world. So they're trying to figure out what's the best way that we can steal the gem that's embedded into the crossroad here. At the same time, seeing all of her friends falling around her, Zatanna decides that she's going to answer that question that was brought up earlier of are we desperate enough? And she's saying yes. And this is where it's revealed that she brought the helmet of fate, and much to the shock of Kid Flash, she puts it on, turns herself into Dr. Fate. And this is where a full on battle occurs between Zatanna Fate and Clarion.
And Young Justice will say it 100 times, but when they get down to the real battles, the central battles, it's always a lot of fun. So with Dr. Fate, there's a lot of onks being thrown. um Shazam uses some his powers to go underground and tunnel like a mole. And there's also a really great moment with Shazam, because you know he's a kid, so he's always acting immature most of the time. So to remind you, but there's a great moment in the fight where Zatara is telling him go help the kids, and he's like, "No,
Mm-hmm.
I'm refused. I'm staying here with you to see this through." And it's a really great moment of responsibility. And for a minute, it looks like things are bad because Clarion mentions the helmet got split between two worlds. Fate isn't as strong, but Fate's like, nah, I'm not listening to that noise, and is able to tap into Zatanna's innate powers, break through the barrier. Kid Flash takes the gem, and Shazam takes the gem. They both hand it to Zatara and Zatanna, respectively. And with that, they're able to finally rejoin the worlds.
And with that, with everybody appearing around each other, Clarion unfortunately does get a chance to escape, as well as the other sorcerers are taken in by the Justice League. But now we have the biggest question of all: are we going to have Zatanna still on the team, or is it going to be Dr. Fate? Because Nabu does not want to release Zatanna. He feels that even though she's young, her innate skills for the mystic arts is just enough for him to continue on his quest of being a Lord of Order. So this is where Zatara um, is pleading with him. It's just like, please let my daughter go. I'll do anything. Are you sure that even Kent Nelson would even condone this kind of thing? And this is where Dr. Fate reveals that Kent Nelson annoyed him too much to the point where he just sent his spirit away to the afterlife. He was done with him. So every decision that he's doing now is his own. And this is where Zatara decides that he has to make a pretty big sacrifice in order to save his daughter, as he pledges his mind, body, and soul, I guess, to Dr. Fate, saying that he will become Dr. Fate because his magical abilities are stronger. He's more at a peak because he has been trained to be a superhero for so long. And he even promises that he will not even negate on this deal, which leads into Zatara or Dr. Fate taking off the helmet. And here we see Zatanna is she's just happy to see her father again. Um it's a very sweet, bittersweet moment because she doesn't know anything about this deal, it seems. So as Zatara takes the helmet and puts it on, she's trying to stop him, but she gets stopped herself with the rest of the team as Zatara turns into the new Dr. Fate.
And yeah, this is an incredibly emotional moment um for the character because, Zatanna is losing her father. Um we don't really get background on her mother at this point, but you get the sense that she is losing her family. So you have this very sobering scene where she's alone in her room on Mount Justice, and you can see that Robin gets it. He knows what this is like. He knows what it's like to lose a family, so he is there as a shoulder for Zatanna in this horrific moment. And as one last final twist, it's revealed at the end of the episode this entire plan was a distraction for the light. Even
Mm.
the French brain is like, yo, this plan was so extra, but it got the job done because we were able to walk into Star Labs with now no issues and get what we needed. So they acquire another piece to their whatever plan they got cooking. And with that, another victory for the light, a loss for Zatanna. We Things are looking pretty cold. It's a cold world. So in this cold world, it's time for another episode, Cold Hearted.
Yes, and we open up with this one with proof that global warming is real because on November 11th, it is a full-on snowstorm. And but more importantly, it is Wally West's birthday. He wakes up to the sound of his alarm. He's very ecstatic. It's his 16th birthday. Um, his mom has made him his favorite breakfast, which is just heaping loads of everything, which low-key I was a little jealous of.
I was like, that's my favorite breakfast too.
It was like one of those like Disney movie breakfasts. It was just like somebody has to eat all of this thing, but somebody just grabs an apple and leave. No, Wally doesn't do that. He eats the whole thing. Um, and in this moment, everybody's just like he's having a great time. Even his father is even offering to take him over to the DMV after school to get his driver's permit. Um, but Wally's like, well, who needs a car when you are faster than like basically the speed of sound? And it's just like fair.
I thought so. I was like, that is a damn good point.
So after he declines having this driver's permit, what's even better is that he got a snow day from school on his birthday. Like everything's coming up Wally. So now it's time for him to just head on over to Mount Justice to see the rest of the team who are apparently throwing him a surprise party that he fully knows about.
Yeah, he got ahead of himself. He's that fast. And they get some quick exposition that the Zeta Tube is offline because of the inclement weather, which I didn't know was possible, but all right.
It's like a direct TV satellite.
Yeah, they got to change the antenna. And Wally has this fantasy. He mentions it to his parents, which is weird for some reason, of like getting a kiss from Megan on his birthday because he still doesn't know she's dating Superboy. And after Wally gets two cakes and he gets a kiss on the forehead, Artemis, with delight, with glee, goes and breaks the news to Wally in the background, and we see his reaction. Does this, I know you're saying, does this contradict everything from that other episode? Yes, because Artemis is chill. She's cool with it. She's processed it. Wally apparently in between those episodes didn't learn anything, but that's what happens. So that is finally wrapped up. We've got that taken care of. And as they're enjoying everything, they get a message from Batman letting him know that this is no ordinary snowstorm. And I just have to mention, should Batman be flying that jet right now in
No,
these
he should
inclement
not.
weather
No, he should
conditions?
not. No, he should not. So we were a little wrong about it being global warming, but that still doesn't. It's still possible. But either way, this is a full-on like machine from snow day almost. Is a like there are five of them all around, and Batman is just flying through all of them. Um, and at one point they also shoot lasers. So I don't even know how this man survived being up in that airspace for any period of time. Because now he's sharing that everybody needs to stop what they're doing. Party has to end. Everybody change into their polar stealth suits, and they're all joining in on a briefing where Batman is saying that they're going to be teaming up with members of the Justice League, which is something that they all have been looking forward to. So they decided that it's he starts giving them their mission reports where Superboy is going to be dropping off a couple of them to go team up with Batman, Flash, and Aquaman. Some others are going to be teaming up with like the likes of Green Arrow and a couple other people, and Shazam and Red Tornado. And Wally is the only one who doesn't get an assignment, which he's shocked at because he's just like maybe he just didn't hear it at first, but he didn't get the assignment because we learned that the snowstorms has caused a heart transplant to be delayed, and if this heart doesn't get transplanted to this individual, this girl, unfortunately she will die. So at first Wally's pissed because he's just like, this is the first time that the team gets to team up with the Justice League and I'm missing out on it. But he's asking, who is this girl? To which Batman replies, does that even matter?
Yeah,
You have to get the job.
no, I love that. No,
I
I
did
love
love
that.
that.
It's such a great line. It's just
Yeah.
like that's the mission. Like it doesn't matter who it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also do have to mention there's a point where they're like, why doesn't the watchtower shoot it down?
Oh yeah.
And there's like the watchtower has no weapons. And I'm like, Batman, you sound pretty disappointed about that. Like they took a vote and they're like, no, Batman, we can't do that. Um,
He was like, what if I just put a little laser? No, Batman.
we talked about this. So Kid Flash is separated from everybody else. He sees everybody else going to their own missions, but he's running to a hospital in Boston. So he's trying to, lighten the mood, banter with the doctors, and they go, it's not working. He's like, "Did you order me a pizza?" And they're like, "No, we didn't. We didn't do that." He's like, "Well, I need the calories." Never mind. And they basically give him a time limit. They say you have to get the heart over in this amount of time. Make sure you get it there, otherwise it'll become non-viable. So he starts running. There's some inner narration. He's just dreaming about the taco stada he wants to eat, the, that new Chipotle secret menu item thing. And things are going pretty standard for Kid Flash until Vandal Savage makes the most gangster entrance as
Bruh.
not only the most jacked character, but the most intimidating villain in this trilogy.
Oh my gosh. Man, look, Vandal Savage's hands are rated E for everybody. Like everybody was getting the work. And it was just you're right. It was such a perfect entrance. He drops down from the sky. I don't even know where he was standing on. And he just starts beating up all the police officers that were there trying to clear the path for Kid Flash. And at that moment, Kid Flash sees that these cops are being taken down. So at first he's confused with what's going on, but he decides to circle back to try to see if he can stop the cops from being harassed any further, which brings him face to face with Vandal Savage. And this is where we see a full-on battle between the two. Vandal Savage clearly can keep up with Kid Flash's speed here as he quickly grabs him. Fortunately, Kid Flash is quick on his feet as he's able to kick away from Vandal Savage just enough to start trying to see if he can go into a counterattack. And as they're fighting, it's like clear that Wally just wants to have a little fun here. He's like, I got time to show up this guy here to make sure that he never messes around with us ever again. Meanwhile, he still has the heart in a medical backpack, which I hope this is like a real thing. Apparently, this backpack is like set up in a way that it absorbs all the shocks that could happen from Kid Flash's running. And this is also keeping up with like holding on to the heart just enough so that even while Kid Flash is like dodging all the hits from Vandal Savage and whatnot, leaping around like he's parkouring and everything, it keeps the heart safe.
Did they borrow some vibranium? Like, I don't. Is this nth metal? Like, I don't know how
This
this
is
heart.
everything.
Yeah, like how this heart is not soup. I couldn't tell you. But after a few minutes, 12 to be exact, Kid Flash realizes he's wasting too much time dealing with Vandal Savage. So he he gets out of there, and Vandal Savage very ominously says that that should have been enough. So clearly there's something going on here. And in between Kid Flash running, we get some cool scenes. I just definitely wanted to highlight where Canary from a Black Canary from a jet uses a canary cry that
Mm-hmm.
completely destroys a weather machine on the outside. So cool. Just to remind you how powerful she really is. But Kid Flash gets to the hospital and he's informed by a doctor that he's 12 minutes too late.
Yeah, it is. It is very quite sad. So this doctor ends up taking the heart while Kid Flash is just sitting out on the side, beating himself up about it because he realizes that his fight with Vandal Savage took 15 minutes. So if he just decided to keep on running, that heart would have made it on time. And he's taken on that, especially on like a day like this where he's just like, I didn't get the birthday wish that I wanted. I didn't get the team up that I wanted, and now I've taken another L here with the loss of this little girl. This is where some of the doctors come up and run over to him. It's just like, Kid Flash, where's the heart? We already prepped the operating room, and this is where he realizes, start putting two to two together, that he's been played. So he starts looking around and he finds that same doctor he gave the heart to, and he starts running down to the basement of the parking lot and to take on the this doctor once again, who first off is immediately strapped, pulled out a gun as soon as Kid Flash took the bag from him.
How about that elevator? How fast was that elevator that it beat Kid Flash down to the like basement floor? Like, was this elevator moving at the speed of sound? Like, was this speed of sound Sonic? Like, what is going on? But yes, the doctor is strapped along with a crew that is clearly prepared for this eventuality. And they try to get Kid Flash, but he's taking them all down. But he is stopped when he is hit by Vertigo beams. That's when Vertigo reveals that the heart transplant was meant for Perdita, who is going to become queen, and that as Perdita's uncle, Vertigo stands to inherit the throne and the entire country if she dies and doesn't get this heart on time. So all of this, the weather machines, the ice, was to prevent Queen Perdita from getting the heart she so desperately needed. So now it's Vertigo versus Kid Flash, and this matchup hasn't gone well before. But now Kid Flash has to take on Vertigo and Vertigo's diplomatic immunity from being persecuted.
Yeah, that was a crazy thing to hear because it was a good question about like why is it that Vertigo is even out. So he does share that as long as he doesn't commit any crimes against Vlava, I think that's how you pronounce that, which is his home country, or even be caught doing anything wrong, he's good. So as Kid Flash keeps Count Vertigo talking, we're hearing again that internal monologue from Kid Flash, where he realizes that even though he's lost his ability to move due to the nausea that Vertigo is causing, he is able to antagonize Count Vertigo enough, just to the point where, because of his ego, Count Vertigo gets close enough where Kid Flash is able to move enough with enough speed to knock out Count Vertigo, or at least knock down Count Vertigo as he rushes back to pick up the backpack. This leads into him getting attacked by Count Vertigo again, but this time he has the upper hand as he's able to run over and knock Vertigo down once again, grabbing the Vertigo inducing like headgear that Vertigo wears, as knocks everybody out, and then Kid Flash runs up to the lobby to drop off the heart once again with the proper doctors this time.
Yes, and the effort does knock him out, which is well deserved because he's been burning so many calories without any snacks. So he passes out, but it is revealed in a news report that while all the weather machines were destroyed, Queen Perdita did not survive. She died on the operating table. So Kid Flash wakes up to this horrible news. Queen and Vertigo is gloating. He is just so happy to tell everybody his plan. He is even correcting Kid Flash. He says, "Oh, this is regicide right here. Like this ain't even a normal homicide I pulled off." But fortunately, it is revealed that it was all a trick. Kid Flash pulls back a hospital curtain to reveal that Queen Perdita is alive and well with two security people who don't do anything when Vertigo tries to attack her with a sword.
Your failure of security. I haven't seen security this bad since like the Oscars of 2022. Like, so now that Kid Flash gets a chance to see that gets a chance to talk with Perdita while Count Vertigo is taken away because Queen Perdita, I'm gonna put a little respect on her name here. She strips Vertigo of his diplomatic immunity. And as she and Kid Flash are talking, she's offering the sword that Count Vertigo had as a souvenir. And here's where we get like a really nice moment in which we know Wally loves his souvenirs from his missions. And this is going to be a big one because this whole mission has been focused solely on him. So when he keeps looking at the sword, he realizes that that's not the best souvenir. His best souvenir is the backpack that held Queen Perdita's heart.
Yeah. And that brings everything, that brings his run to an end. Kid Flash ran to the end of our trilogy.
We do have a little bit of a kind of like a post sign here of things to come. Count Vertigo's in jail. He's getting mocked by by Brooke. At the same time, Batman goes to Bel Rev and he's questioning Hugo Strange. It's just like, we had an attack that consisted of like 5 ice villains. Where were they? And this is where Hugo Strange reveals that each and every single one of them has been locked up. So there's no way they could have been a part of this, proving that something more is afoot. And speaking of feats, we're gonna train up like Kid Flash to try to see if we can move as fast as him. But while we do that, here's a podcast from the Forgotten Entertainment family you should be listening to the next time you're not listening to us.
Do you like beer?
Do you like podcasts?
Do you like beer podcasts?
Then check out Crackin' One Open, a podcast about brews, news, and pop culture reviews.
Every week, we crack open a new craft beer from breweries around the country.
And sometimes the world.
We'll talk about how it was made, what's in it, the history of the brew, and the brewery.
Then we'll give our tasting notes, and while we're finishing up, we'll talk about some of the latest goings-on in the world of pop culture.
So check out Crackin' One Open with Mike and Elise, part of the Forgotten Entertainment family.
All right. What for you, Andrew, from our batch of episodes today, the Fast Times of Hogwarts High, are you giving the most whelmed episode award to?
I mean, obviously, it's Secrets. The first episode, my favorite. Secrets is actually, I think, in our rewatch, the first episode I've actively disliked. This one, they were just trying to do way too much. The tones are all over the place. The storylines are all over the place. Harm is not a great villain. For any, not even thematically appropriate to what's going on in the episode, which they usually nail. So I don't know really what this episode was supposed to do because it doesn't advance any characters really, and all the stuff it brings up about the mole doesn't come up in the next 2 episods. So I don't know what it
filler
just,
episode.
It felt like just random pieces of filler. So it really came down to Cold-Hearted and Misplaced, and these are both really, really stellar episodes. Each with these very big stakes and consequences. But the one thing I do love the Kid Flash focus. I love it. But the one thing that holds Cold-Hearted back for me is if you actually step back and think about the plot of this, it is insane. Are you telling me Count Vertigo, the only way he could prevent his niece from getting a heart was to have 5 ice machines taking over the world and disrupting. Would it not have been easier to just like steal the heart in transit?
Yeah, yeah. Also, to call him Vandal Savage was a lot. I feel like
For
he's the
this?
lead, right? For this, like this was Vandal Savage being like, I need to stretch today.
Yeah, I feel like there was another way. Like the plot could have also similarly happened if I know you had to take out the Zeta tubes
Hmm.
as a factor, but I feel like there was a simpler way to get it so that Kid Flash had to run and there was no other way to do it. I just feel there was a simpler way to do this. But everything else about Kid Flash is great about him learning a little humility. But yeah, overall, I think Misplaced, it's just such a cool concept. The way they use Shazam in this episode and give him some real shine
Hmm.
is like harkens back to the old Justice League episodes where a character that you don't necessarily spend time with gets a lot of good shine and their abilities come in handy. So the unique way they use Shazam's abilities, the way it moves the plot forward, especially in regards to Zatanna joining the team and solving the Dr. Fate mystery
Hmm.
that's been hanging over everyone's head. Um, so bringing that arc to a close, some emotional resonance between Zatanna and Robin about losing parents, and just great animation, great story. Overall, I think, yeah, I think I was most whelmed by Misplaced. I think it had everything I wanted
Hmm.
from a Young Justice episode. How are you feeling here on this trilogy?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. Misplaced is the most well-known episode of the bunch. Now, I will say though, Cold Hearted, I feel over time has always been part of my like top 5 episodes of Young Justice, in my opinion. So, um, if I ever was to like introduce somebody to Young Justice, that will be the episode I would probably share with them. Um, but other than that, for Misplaced, just again, it just like connected so much more to the story. Where Cold Hearted was just so focused on Kid Flash, it's just like you didn't need. It's a good enough of a story where it's just like you didn't need the context of all everything else that's happening around in that world, the knowledge of it. But for an episode to move the story along, Misplaced did that. I agree. The Shazam serving as the bridge was a great way to use that character, especially to reveal that secret. Which, again, side note about secret, not good. It was just too much. This is clear that this was a filler Halloween episode that was just too much. It didn't even come out around Halloween. That's the funniest thing. This is a sunny day in like July, I believe, that this episode came out. Um, so yeah, it was like Misplaced was just a well written, great callbacks to everything that the team has experienced so far. I also love the fact that how it connected a little bit to that failsafe episode where we are seeing what happens when the team is the main set of heroes. Especially just seeing those little moments in which like they're being very human with the civilians. Especially, I noticing that like nobody was dressed in their actual uniform. Kid Flash was dressed in his regular civvies. Artemis is dressed in the regular civvies. The only person who had on their uniform still was Superboy. I think it's just only because it's the only T-shirt he has.
Yeah.
Like even Robin and Zatanna were dressed in their regular clothes when they were in Mount Justice trying to figure out what was going on. So it felt like the most human episode of the bunch because we were able to connect and relate with every single person that was there. And also the little cute kid moments. Like, I mean, I don't know what's in that sippy cup, but I do like the fact that it ended up being a souvenir in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really I, yeah, that's another great thing about that episode. A great point by the kids. It's like they always feel like they're the kids.
Mm-hmm.
The team always feels like they're behind. And this was the time where they had an entire world looking up to them as the adult senior heroes. And I think that responsibility, there's even a moment where Superboy pulls off a save and he smiles, which
Mm-hmm.
he's had trouble coping with that. But when a kid reaches up and touches the logo, that is enough for him. He doesn't have to be Superman in that moment. He doesn't have to live up to that legacy. He just has to live up to this kid and make sure this kid is safe. So I think this is a good preview of what the team will become in the future, what they will inspire and represent.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think this is really, really good character stuff here that isn't all spoken and highlighted, but everybody on the team gets a little bit of something to work with here.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's probably because this is inspired by an actual Young Justice story in the comics. We have some comic book knowledge today for y'all.
Oh, here we go.
So this story about a world without grown-ups is actually the first time or second team up, sorry, of the Young Justice team that consists of Impulse, Superboy, and the Tim Drake Robin. This is after their encounter with another named character who's going to be the second part of our comic book knowledge for today. So in this two-part issue story, it's called Justice League: A World Without Adults. It came out in 1998, and it's a very similar story to what's happening in our episode. There's a magical being. This time, his name is Bedlam, who takes over the body of a kid who gets this bad present from his dad, and he's just very upset about this bad present. So Bedlam shows him that he can create a world where this kid could get anything he wants by putting him in charge. And this kid ends up getting rid of all the adults in the world. It doesn't have, it's a more fun read, if anything. It doesn't have the same kind of sad notes that we see, or like deep moments where like Wally is just like, I can't go back home to another empty home. And then later in the episode gets reunited with his parents. We don't really see that in here. Instead, um, it's a lot. The kids go through the same thing that the kids in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie went through, where they were like, "Oh, free world shenanigans." So fortunately, though, Tim Drake, very much actually determines that like maybe Billy Batson, because he knows about Billy's ability to transform into Shazam. He asks Billy, with the help of his teammates, to see if maybe Billy can find out where the adults went to. And of course, it's a lot of fear because no one really knows at this point if the adults are dead or if they're in a different kind of space of time. Um, Fortunately, it is the latter. So Billy is able to, upon transforming into Shazam, he sees that the worlds have been split in two, and it's a very well drawn scene where you see two Earths being connected by the purple energy that Bedlam has. Unfortunately, when Billy arrives on Parent World, where the Justice League are going through the same thing of trying to figure out what has happened to the kids, realizing that they're also victims of this like kidnapping of themselves, a lot of them start panicking. Like they're like, some of them are just like, oh man, we gotta save the kids. Others are just like, fortunately, we have the Teen Titans who are there to help the kids. The funniest moment of all, though, is Flash starts panicking and realizing that Impulse is on that world and he might be their best hope. But this is all determined once Billy heads over. The thing is, though, when he lands on the adult world, Billy is still Billy. He doesn't turn into Shazam.
Oh.
And this is because at one point in when Billy transformed to Shazam, Bedlam was able to pluck the body of Shazam away so that only Billy was going to be able to head over to adult world. And this body was put in stasis. The Shazam's body was put in stasis, and Bedlam started using Shazam's energy to help bridge this the two worlds so that they were separate, but he was able to manipulate both sides of it.
Yeah, I'm glad they glanced over that in the show.
Yeah, it was confusing, very confusing reading this. Though I did appreciate the fact that they were able to punch in a little bit more of the just kind of like the building out of who these heroes are and giving them some character development in these like quick scenes. And speaking of some more comic book knowledge, as I mentioned, this is a part of the second team up of this Young Justice team. I think we first talked about this in the first episode of Young Justice, about their origins and how it was Impulse, Superboy, and Robin who met up with somebody called Secret. And this is this gaseous figure who in the comics they was held captive by the DEO, and the team here was trying to, upon learning that it was an actual young girl, they decided to try and save her, which they succeeded in doing. So since we talked about Secret already, I guess we could actually talk about Harm.
Oh, yes, boy. Let's go. I need more harm in my life.
Yeah. So Harm is a comic book character, and everything that we saw in the show matches up very much to his own personal story. Harm is Secret's adoptive brother. We first meet him in Young Justice #4 back in January 1999. His name is Billy Hayes. So when Billy was adopted, Secret, whose real name and didn't have her powers at that point, her name was Greta. She used to have visions, apparently.
Mhm.
And in these visions, when Billy was brought to their home, she saw that he had the ability to create great evil. She was freaked out, but he comforted her by saying that he will always protect her. That was clearly a lie, though, because he was super violent. It was bad. Without getting into too much detail of the occurrence, basically, he almost killed their father, and unfortunately did kill Greta. That led into her transformation becoming Secret. And this is because he had made a deal with a demon to become the world's greatest murderer.
Okay. I mean, I don't know what that really quantifies. Quantity, quality?
Yeah. I was unsure about that too. Like weapon technique, is that also taken into account? Like, so later on, this is in issue #4. So later on in that issue, Harm does actually face off against the team, specifically Arrowette. So hence why she's the comic book inspiration of Artemis in our show. This is why I guess this is why they decided to have this matchup in the series as well. And during this fight, Harm does defeat the Young Justice team and is able to escape. He does another battle against them. This time, he's planning to kidnap John. Was it the Pope John Paul II at the time?
What?
Yeah,
That escalated.
it did. I was sitting here reading this. I was like, I'm sorry, what? So that was our WTF moment in comics, y'all. Protect the Pope. So at the same time, in order to also help with the defeat of Young Justice, he planted a bomb in Red Tornado so that they'll be distracted on two fronts. Now, of course, our heroes have to win, which they do. Harm decides to head back home, but while this is all going on, Harm's father finds out everything. He knows that Billy killed his daughter. He knows that Billy attacked him. So he decides that he talks with his wife, and the two of them decide that something must be done. So when Harm comes home to celebrate the fact that he was able to at least get away, his adoptive father, shoots and kills him.
Well,
Mhm.
you know, this is where it had to end for him. I mean,
It doesn't end there.
ah,
Unfortunately, there is a story called Day of Judgment where the Spectre gets taken over, and because of this, it leads to legit hell freezing over. Because of this, they have to evacuate hell. One of the evacuees happens to be Harm, who's able to come back because Secret, who has now also joined the Young Justice team, he comes back in a very similar style to her. So he once again tries to take down Young Justice. Secret realizes that Harm is her brother, her adopted brother Billy, and realizes that he was the one that killed her. So she goes to attack him. This leads to the both of them falling off a cliff. Both of their bodies disappear once Impulse looks around to try to see if they can find them. But Secret is able to come back. Apparently, Harm got the ability to possess people. So, in an effort to try to continue on his plan, his adoptive father was actually charged with his murder and was about to get the death sentence. So he decided to go and possess his father to try to see and made sure that Secret found out about the fact that her father was on death row. During this entire time, when they get a chance to talk, Secret and her now possessed father, he plays off the fact that that the father never loved his daughter, but she doesn't want to hear it. So she gets the help of another superhero Slobo, who's related to Lobo. I'm not going to go into that, but Secret goes and tries to break her father out of prison. The rest of the team are just like, we can't have you do that, and she's able to take down the team pretty easily herself too. Which again, it gets even crazier because now Darkseid is watching, and Darkseid's like, "Yo, you got power, I got power. We should combine our efforts and take over the world." So he kidnaps her alongside with her father, who is still possessed, as an extra last minute fu, I guess, to her father. Billy as Harm in the possessing the body jumps into the Apocalypse fire pit to kill them both, while Darkseid manipulates Secret into turning her into one of his weapons. So now Secret is evil. The older Justice League members are trying to console the team over the fact they just lost one of their friends, and saying to, instead of trying to like go and save her, they're like, let's use this moment of Secret turning evil as a teachable moment for the kids.
I don't think I like Secret in any medium. Secret and Harm, I just don't think I like them.
And then Robin goes and is able to talk Secret out from being evil. Darkseid gets pissed and strips her of her abilities. So now she's just a regular girl that goes to school.
Thanks for that. Whoever wrote all that, thank you. Thank you for leaving us there after all of that nonsense with Darkseid and murdering and resurrections. Thank you.
Yeah. That was a lot. I just needed to get that off my chest, honestly, because I was just like, what happened here that we got this episode? And this is why. So yeah, now that you now know more about the history of Secret and Harm, do with that information what you must. In the meantime, we're going to continue on with our journey through Young Justice. So catch us next time as we cover the last set of episodes in the Young Justice series. And just remember to take care of yourselves, and to, if you ever get a chance to be stuck on either Adult World or Kid World, I would say go with Adult World.
And if you need to stop your enemy from getting a heart for a transplant, I don't know, just like trip them and make a dog eat a heart. It happened on One Tree Hill, I think.